morning, good afternoon, good evening, all over the world. Dobson 777A here. I wanted to do a part 2 to follow up to the video I did Friday night, I think it was. And it was talking about ICE 9 being initiated. And I gave you some predictions of what I thought was actually happening here, and that I believe that we're in the process of this reset. They're going to take advantage of everything being shut down. And I talked about how complex a process it would be and compared it to like taking a nuclear reactor offline, all of the planning and everything, coordination, everything that's required. But other things are starting to come into play which really will show the impact of what's going on. Everybody has stopped spending. No one's buying houses. No one's buying cars. No one's eating out now. The loss of tax revenue is catastrophic to states first, your state you're living in. Most food is exempt from purchase if you're just buying food at the grocery store. In Georgia, if you buy prepared food, like if you go to the cooked chicken or something, they actually hit you with a tax. If you're buying from a burger joint to a restaurant, you get taxed. But if you're buying a raw chicken and you take it home and cook it, there's no tax. If people aren't going back and forth to work, they're not buying gasoline for their vehicles. Tremendous taxes, both federal and local taxes on your gasoline. Just about anything that you can think of is now being just a significant reduction in taxes, which is starving these governments. So even though, and I didn't mean to make it sound like I was picking on teachers or anything, it's not their fault. This whole system has been kind of corrupted with the continued growth and not looking at the salaries. Most of these federal and local state governments, these employees, their benefits are way beyond the private sector. So this part of this reset is to bring things back into the same, in line. We should just say in line. Now, some of the things that I did not talk about that probably should have been covered, but I think the video was already pretty long, so I just had to nip it in the bud. And by the way, I had very, very good comments from everybody on that. But think about this. Medical is a huge cost for most all of us. And we are, if you work for a company, you're basically paying a retainer for insurance, just like you would a lawyer. And I would argue that we are no longer going to have any cosmetic surgeries, or in fact, they will probably cut out even the preemptive type things because we just don't have money. We're not going to have money. This is, again, just going to be survival. So I don't know if I mentioned to you, but for my 60th birthday, I had the pleasure of having a colonoscopy scheduled. And I went in for the consult because it was a new doctor since we had relocated to Georgia. And, that was probably a month ago, and it's not been scheduled. They told me they would get back with me and let me know, but because all this stuff's kind of blown up, I'm not sure it's going to be done. I'm not sure I want it done in the next year or two anyways. So all of these things, first off, when there's a kind of like a plague that's going on, you don't want to be near a hospital. You don't want to be near any surgeries unless you have to. So one of the things you need to think about is be really careful. Try not to get sick, right? Try not to get hurt. And it's been a long time recently for me, but I'm prone to let's say power tools injuries and things, especially when I'm doing large projects. You get a little careless and you might nip a piece of your finger off or something. I've been known to do that. Even all of these, like processing rabbits. I did 6 rabbits today, and normally in the spring, we're not quite there yet. We have a couple more months. I will have large batches of rabbits that I'll have to process, and if I push more than 6 in a day, I start getting a little lackadaisical because I start getting really good in like an assembly line, and that's when you get hurt. But I haven't, truthfully, in processing rabbits and stuff, I haven't ever required stitches, but there's been other things I've done that required pretty substantial stitches. So it's just, guys, we're always doing things, and there's stuff that happens. I've had more than one hook extracted out of my hand from fishing with lures, because I switched to lures years ago, and lures are kind of dangerous when you're bringing fish in the boat. They come flying out, and you can get hooked pretty readily. So I even had a catfish fall on my foot, and the barb broke off in my foot, and I actually had to go to a surgeon to have it removed. There's all kinds of things like that through the years, but in this kind of environment, kind of want to be real careful. One of the things that I didn't talk about was the military. It would not surprise me, with the direction we're heading, if we're actually broke and we're going through a reset, you might see something like what happened to Russia. I think it was in the 80s when the Soviet Union collapsed. They could not pay their military. All they could do was feed them. So this becomes quite an interesting thing, and this went on for years before things kind of got stabilized in that country. There's a good possibility that if you've signed up for the military, and I don't know how they're going to make that up for you, but you may not get paid. That may happen in quite a few of the branches for different things. I often wonder how that's going to be resolved. You might actually see just mass layoffs. I mean, think about it, the federal and states, no income. They can't pay the people, right? So you may see mass layoffs at the federal and state level, and then even in the military. This is why I'm telling you we are probably going to half of the jobs. Now I want you. Somebody thought it was kind of depressing the way I presented it, but I will tell you that presentation I did was optimistic. It was not pessimistic in my mind. If I wanted to tell you what pessimistic would be, you should go watch my video on Venezuela. Now that was a disaster. Venezuela, doctors, teachers, a whole bunch of folks with advanced degrees went into prostitution because, again, the government didn't have money, and that's kind of what's happening here. They do not have money. The people are out of work, and the stories here that most folks don't even have a month's reserve funds. So our people are broke. So how are they going to tax people when they're not working, they got no income? You watch, we may not even have a federal income tax for a couple years because it's so bad right now. Which that means you're going to starve somebody's going to have to make some tough decisions here. We know our government is bloated. We know, just like I talked about, some of the work that we were doing was like a jobs program. We were hiring people that had no business being hired and giving them the dumbest jobs, and we were just adding all kinds of stuff in the company. It was no value added, just to give people work to do. So it's probably 10 times worse in the government. So just think about this. This is something that is kind of in your face right now. You have to think about how things work. People are like, well, they'll just print trillions more dollars, but that just means that any dollars that you have becomes diluted by this other fake fiat that's being produced for no effort. There's just no easy way around this. This is something that is going to get worse. So also think about Social Security. If you're old enough, you would realize that Social Security is a government-sanctioned Ponzi scheme. And the fact is, people are being laid off. What was it, like 10 million people were laid off in a very short amount of time? It's just the beginning. As those people are laid off, they're not paying Social Security taxes. So Social Security starts going bankrupt faster because, I forget what the number is. There's like 3 or 4 people working for every person that's retired now, trying to pay into that thing. So it's not a good situation. It's just another example of how, these things are so poorly designed and managed now. Not a good situation. Now, I will tell you some of the preps that I'm doing right now. I went ahead and ordered some more Cornish Rocks, and I've talked about before how you can raise these chickens. In 2 months, you'll have 10-pound chickens. So I've ordered some of those, and I also did order some turkeys. I wasn't planning on doing both, but there was a fairly substantial shipping charge, and so I basically got the Cornish Rocks for what it would have cost for shipping. So you might as well spend the money and get the free shipping, so you're at least getting something instead of nothing. I'm also considering building a large garden at my in-laws' house. So I have to work with them and see if, the local family in that area, there's lots of in-laws and stuff all in that area that hopefully can maintain it, because it's enough for me to try to maintain what I'm doing here. But I've now got, I processed 6 rabbits today, and we moved about 15 into the full grow out area now. They're about 2 months away, and then I've mated 4 more rabbits. So that's like 4 months away that I'll have more meat coming. So the chickens will be here at the end of the month. So that means at the end of June, I'll have, 15 chickens for the freezer. And then the turkeys will be towards the end of the year, like Thanksgiving. They'll come in, a few weeks after the chickens do, and it takes like 6 months to grow them up. The hens are like 20 pounds, and the toms, believe it or not, are like 40-pound turkeys. So I can't wait to, deal with that. I've never raised turkeys. I think it'd be interesting. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I just want you to realize it would not surprise me, based on what I'm hearing, and that, we don't have real good answers, except for a lot of the horrible predictions they had for the number of deaths are not panning out. But the fact that they've shut everything down, we could have some fairly substantial food shortages in no time. I was talking to one of my friends in Texas to see what he was hearing at the beef processing areas, and some of the numbers he was reviewing, it looks like they're down about 25-30% from normal processing for beef. And I've already reported what was happening with the chicken processing here. In fact, I'm planning on driving by the chicken processing plant to see how full the parking lot is. Pretty soon it's going to be fresh fruits are going to be a problem. This all has to do with the supply chain is shut down. We don't have slop in the system, folks. So I hope you're seriously looking at and trying to get months worth of reserve foods. Not weeks, months, because these problems show up. There's like a lag before people realize that there's an issue, and they're doing everything they can to try to keep things moving. But even like Amazon, look like they're heading for a strike, and they're like one of the only delivery folks left. In the post office, they're not, when the business are shut down, they're not getting postal income. So the postmen are delivering, probably significantly lower volume, So that's another whole government agency that's was already never making money, and now it's losing significantly more money. It's hard to see any positives in this right now. There's no sun breaking through the clouds that we can start seeing something coming. This just is it. You know, all I can try to do is lead by example. Look, I've planted the crap out of my garden. You know, we've got a little bit more cold weather coming, so I'm holding off on getting like my peppers and tomatoes and some of my other squash and everything in the garden just yet. But by this later this week, I will be planting a lot of stuff. So, anyways, I hope everybody's treating you well. I hope you're doing well. Do the best you can. God bless.